you go first. Okay.
Can you hear me?
So yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you want to be the sheriff of La Paz County, and what makes you feel you're uniquely qualified to be the sheriff.
My name is Frank Pedrine. Can you hear me back there? Yeah. Good. My name is Frank Pedrine, and I am a homegrown Parker boy from Yuma County. Anybody here know back there?
No problem. Yeah.
From Yuma County, which is now La Paz County, part of northern Yuma County. I'm a high school graduate. After high school, I joined the military where I played soldier for 22 years as an infantry sergeant. 2 years in Vietnam with the 1st Air Cav, 1st of the 7th Infantry. I was a drill sergeant for 10 years, almost 10 years, where I taught sergeants, young sergeants, how to be leaders, how to teach, and just be a good soldier. My thing is communication. As a cop for the last 26 years, I retired the 31st of December 2016 from the Paz County Sheriff's Department after 26 years. My big thing is communications. Without communications, you have nothing. And just because you can talk, you have to have an attitude when you're wearing that badge and addressing somebody on the street, in the residence, wherever. A good attitude from the officers will entrust some trust to the person that you're talking to. And eventually, when you talk to them on a regular basis, that will incur a friendship. And when you see these people, they won't flip you off maybe, but they'll wave at you with all 5 fingers instead of just one. Pardon me? I've done that before too. My biggest thing with the Sheriff's Department today, well, I'll take it back. 6 months after I retired, numerous people would stop me in the store, in the restaurant. A lot of them, because I gave everybody my phone number, would call me and say, we never see a cop anymore in our residential areas. We never see a cop in the business areas. Well, where are they? They're out on the highway. I had a former cop tell me, hey, I talked to your sheriff the other day. Okay. He said he didn't specify a date or a month. He said, but we gave over 700 citations last month. Well, if you gave over 700 citations last month, the Paz County deputies, who's patrolling in the residential areas? Who's patrolling through the business areas? So, when I become sheriff, I will instruct every deputy in their department or in their district, because they have districts, and they do rotate. You have 4 months. 4 months to be able to tell me the first name and last name of every proprietor that owns a business in your district. I'm not saying you have to know all the residents, but those will come as time goes. You have to talk to the people. When they wave at you, you can't scowl or say, the hell are you looking at? Get back, stop. I used to drive by and see some lady, or old man, whatever, raking the yard. You missed a piece over here. Or might need a little more water here. Talk to them, because they will talk to you. Consequently, in communication, they would tell me stuff as time went by that I could go back and tell the task force. You might want to check on this because you've got a lot of bad stuff going on. Training. Now, mandated, there's only so much training that you can give to certain people, not certain people, but select personnel to send to schools. Now, the sheriff said in one of our meetings that now they have the best radios case, with no cost to the county, or very minimum cost to the county, we can have additional training, testing with the computers. Now, there's been times where I worked what we call District 3, that's Laos, Wyndham, Sloan, Brenda. Sometimes it was courtside before it changed. And never had a call. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I never had a call. Don't tell me that you don't have time to do a test, do your reports, those are necessary. I officiate high school sports. In fact, I just signed back up for football again. Maybe we'll have high school football. And I coach Little League, and I do all major high schools. Why would I be the best sheriff in your selection for the sheriff? Because nobody, and I'm going to tell you this right now, nobody knows La Paz County any better than me, because I searched the whole area 26 years. You guys got an excellent chief of police. Keep him here. Vote for Frank Murray.
So Lisa, we're just answering the question right now. We're not giving our speech, right?
Right, thank you.
So the question again, please.
The question is to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be the sheriff of La Paz County, and what makes you feel you're uniquely qualified to be in this position.
My name is Mike Roth. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started businesses my entire life. I moved to Quartzsite. I met my wife here in Quartzsite. We got married here, and we decided to stay here. But immediately, I didn't like how things were done here. And I stood up, and I was the tall male that got the hammer, and I decided to say, I'm not going to take this. And that's when, I got the pushback from law enforcement, who was doing the work of the politicians. The chief at the time was using his badge to practice his politics, quite frankly. And anyway, it was a hard battle. Others joined in, and we were able to turn around. It took us a long time, many years. Too long. Should have been done immediately. Why do I want the job? To be perfectly frank, I'd rather just do what I do and not even be doing this. But I've been doing this, I've been living here for 15 years, and I don't see any changes. Nothing's changing. Our constitutional rights are being eroded daily, and law enforcement's going along with it. It's a recipe for disaster. We need to get back to the founders' documents, and we need to make a serious turn towards that right away. What was the last part of that question?
Why are you uniquely qualified?
Because I'm Mike Roth, and I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. The Constitution's the supreme law of the land, and we're not following it, and we will once I get in. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bill Risen. I'm your current sheriff of La Paz County. Seated back there is my wife of 49 years, maybe 50 years shortly. It's a long time. I've been in law enforcement for 40 years. When I retired and came up to Parker, I started working for Parker Police Department as a civilian. I worked their evidence and I wrote their department manual. I then went to work for the crisis shelter, and I counseled women who were victims of domestic violence. I taught the women about the domestic violence and how to get what they need out of the legal system, because the legal system does not allow the women to get what they need. So I gave them courses on how to get what they need out of the legal system. I also helped bring the county back from the money problems they had. I said I was going to bring back the federal inmates, and I did bring back the federal inmates. I brought back the federal inmates to the tune of $2 million the last 2 calendar years, $2 million each year, $4 million for the county. that we brought in with federal inmates. I kept the costs down of the county. I bought used police vehicles. I went back to the city that I worked for and bought 7 used police cars for $1,000 a piece, completely outfitted. We now buy units from Avondale Police Department for about $12,000. A going rate for a police car now is $40,000 to $70,000. I'm also president of the Arizona County Attorneys Association, Sheriff's Association. In the things that we have done, some of them are, I've received grants to buy new radios, both handhelds and unit radios, at a cost of over $200,000. None of it came from the city. It was all grants to us. I donated items that we replaced to Quartzsite because they had a need for some of the items. They got some computers, they got some of our cars and things like that. I also sit on the governor's commission on opioid overdoses in the state of Arizona, and we go over all opioid deaths in the state of Arizona to see what we can do to change the system so we quit losing the young kids. Some of the things that the Sheriff's Department has started doing since I became sheriff is we now put on the boat parade in Parker, the lighted boat parade, because the Chamber of Commerce could no longer afford to do it. They didn't have insurance. Well, I'm the president of the Parker Lions Club, and I could give them a $2 million liability policy. They said, just take the whole darn thing. So now we do the lighted boat parade. We also have taken over Take a Kid Fishing, which was by Walter Shantz. It's been in existence for over 40 years. We have Aid to the Elderly. When we receive word that there's an elderly person in the county of La Paz and their air conditioner quits working or they need water, I actually send out deputies and we take care of them. We bring them water. I send out my repair team. They repair the air conditioners, and if we can't repair them, we buy them new ones. There's no need for someone to suffer in the summer out here. We also have done Christmas for the Troops, where all the troops that are in the war zone, we take up collections within the county, we packages up and send it to them. We also started Christmas in July for the troops. It was amazing. The first year we sent a big shipment over to Afghanistan. The forward operating base that was supposed to get it was under attack and they couldn't get it, so it sat there for about 2 days. On July 4th, they actually came in with a helicopter to the forward operating base when the attack stopped. The first thing that came in was all the gifts from La Paz County. You should have heard what the guys had to say about La Paz County and how we cared about our military. I am retired military. I was in the U.S. Army. I'm also responsible for helping to set up the Veterans Court of La Paz County. We just made a major change. We now have pre-adjudication for the veterans. We treat the illness, we don't treat the symptoms. We treat the veteran who has a problem and solves that problem for them. We have Kids Christmas. The girls in my office, they collect gifts for the kids all year long. And they take it out to them at Christmas time. We don't give it to the kids, we give it to the parents to give to their children. We want the parents to receive the benefit of saying, hey, this is what I'm giving you. Look, we have a Christmas. We have the Elder Christmas Tree. It's through KLPZ Radio. I've been involved with it for a number of years. The deputies take the gifts out to the people in the county. The seniors feel more comfortable when they see a sheriff's car pull up and a deputy get out in uniform and we give them their gifts. Now what they do is they fill out a request form of what they need. So we were expecting things like radios, televisions, all that kind of stuff. The requests we got were for toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, soap. And so we started looking at it and go, there's something wrong with this. If this is a Christmas present for them, what do they do the rest of the year? So instead of buying one item, we would buy cases of items and take it out to them. One of my guys, he would install flagpoles for the seniors that wanted to display the American flag. One of the highlights of my career is I got to go meet with President Trump in El Centro and talk to him. Found him to be a very down-to-earth individual, very cognizant of what's happening. We talked about the fence that was going up. He said, Sheriff, I want to thank you for being a first responder and being out there and taking care of us. And he started to walk away, and I said, Mr. President, I want to thank you for being president because you've got the most godforsaken job ever. No matter what you do, you're wrong, and half the people hate your guts when you do it. He says, we're going to turn the ship around. We're going to make this work. So I really enjoyed meeting the president. I just received a $25,000 grant from the Attorney General's office to buy officer safety equipment. I had asked them if it was possible for us to buy GPS for the units. You see, when my units are out in the desert, we have no idea where they're at except by their radio. If they roll their truck or they drive off a cliff or something happens to them, we got to hunt them up in the desert, and it can take days to find somebody out in our 4,500 square miles. Attorney General said, my God, we never thought of it. Yes. So we're now getting GPS units for our cars. Not only does it benefit our deputies, but it shows on the dispatch screen where the units are at. So if a unit is closer to a call than another unit, dispatch can send the closer unit. It means a quicker response time for the people. God knows we have a terrible response time when we have so few units and so many square miles. So anything to help the citizens. Now, some of the people complain about us being on the highway. I have news for you. We can't get off the highway. Because at 11 o'clock, DPS goes to bed, and the highways, being Interstate 10, guess who it belongs to? La Paz County Sheriff's Department and Quartzsite. You see both of us rolling on fatality traffic collisions on the freeway. We can't refuse to do it, and I refuse to do it, because the people don't need to suffer because of insufficient staffing. So yes, we do roll on the freeways, and we do roll on traffic accidents. And if there's a shooting, we're there for it too. So we're out there to help. Did I get my questions answered?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And whatever order you guys decide that you want to go in.
Same way.
Okay. Frank?
Yes.
Will your personal opinions, rivalries, or ego get in the way of you following the law?
Never. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Now, you got to have some kind of an ego to be a cop. But never, ever have I ever let my personal pride get involved with me doing my job. End of story.
Or your personal opinion? Like, if you like a person versus you don't like a person?
I think I'm the only cop that I know of that's ever arrested his own two kids. So where do you think you stand? My personal opinion. My sons, one got off the bus. They were in Virginia. Do I have time? They went to Virginia and they were fishing. Judge stopped me and said, hey, you know I got warrants for your kids, your two boys. I said, really? He said, yeah. One ate a drug house and the other one failed to appear on a traffic citation. And both of them was $350 warrants. So I called them. I said, hey. Well, first they said, Dad, we're making so much money we ain't got time to spend it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, the judge just told me each one of you send him $35 a month until your $350 bond is paid and he'll apply for warrant. So, back in the day, at 4 o'clock, a whole bunch of us would meet at the restaurant, and we even got to where we met the bus drivers. And one of them said, was in Baus, and they were on their way in at 4 o'clock. And he calls me and he said, hey, you at the restaurant? I said, yeah. He said, you got a son named Jason? I said, damn sure do. He said, well, I got him on my bus. I'll meet you. So when he gets to the bus stop or when he gets to the restaurant. Hugs and kisses, turn your ass around. He said, for what? You're under arrest. For what? You got a warrant. I mean, I told you that shit to pay the judge. You wouldn't do it. So, all that money you got, now you give it to the judge. Now, did I take him home to see his mother? Because she passed away later on. Yes. Hugs and kisses, let him take a shower, and then I said, let's go. Turn around. Took him to jail. The youngest one, I met him in Maricopa County because his mother was in the hospital. And I met him there. I came back. Next morning I get up and I said, you're under arrest. For what? The $350 bond, remember? That you didn't pay? Now you're under arrest. So I took him to jail. I paid his bond. But still, I did arrest him. So no, I have no opinion. So my question, an answer to your question was, numerous people since that time that I've made contact with, I told them, I said, I'm the only cop that I know of that's ever arrested his own 2 kids, so where the hell do you think you stand?
Very good. Thank you.
Can you repeat it again? The question.
The question, will your personal opinions, rivalries, or ego get in the way of you following the law?
No. Short answer, no. Everybody has the right to their opinion. Doesn't matter what position you're in. But no, everyone's going to be treated fairly and squarely. There are a lot of laws I disagree with. We need to have those discussions. I don't believe we should be enforcing unconstitutional laws. I think that's how we got where we're at right now. We need to get back to the founders' documents. And by the way, I have free pocket constitutions back on that table. We all need a refresher course. Not just read it, but read their intentions behind all this, the struggle prior to it, because we have really lost our way in this country. We are doing things. I mean, if the founding fathers saw what we were doing right now, they'd be spitting in their graves. They'd be wondering why we aren't taking more direct action. So, to answer your question, no, I won't let it interfere with doing the right thing, as long as we're doing the right thing.
No, my personal opinions don't enter into what I do every day. I've actually gone against what a judge has said because I felt the judge was wrong. He was a sex offender. She ordered him released on his own recognizance and said, notify the victim. So we tried to notify the victim. We couldn't find the victim, so I didn't release the suspect. So after 2 days in jail, they come back to me and they go, why isn't he out of jail? I said, because I was ordered to contact the victim, and I can't contact the victim. Okay? So a couple more days go, and I start wondering what they're going to do, so I call up the Arizona Attorney General. And I talked to the Attorney General, and I said, hey, this is what the circumstances are. He says, oh my God, for the first time, the sheriff does the right thing. The law says you have to notify the victim before you release him from custody. I didn't release him from custody. The judge came back from vacation, held another hearing, and started to berate me for not following what they said. What I told the judge was very simple. The Attorney General agreed with me. That's it. The judge had nothing more to say. I do my job, I do it honestly, and we do what needs to be done. We have a slogan at the Sheriff's Department. We don't do what's easy, we do what's right. And that's the way it is. We do what's right.
Obviously, given the state of the world right now, the morale of all officers are suffering. How will you recognize low morale and self-esteem, and how will you address it?
Everybody here, can you hear me? How many of you got animals? How many of you have animals? Let's go with dogs. Let's go with dogs. Okay, again, how many of you got dogs? Okay. How many of you take a ball and throw the ball and the dog runs and gets it and brings it back and pat him on the head? Good boy. Good boy. So why can't you do that to an officer, whether it be police or classified as a deputy? Why can't you say, just on the radio, because I did this as just a low-line deputy. Good job. Good job, officer. Now, a month or so ago, Captain Bagby did a outstanding feat, saving this young lady and daughter.
The one where he helped the lady, the person that crashed.
Okay, and the sheriff put it in the paper. One time in 3 years, that somebody got an attaboy. So esprit de corps, for those of you that have ever been in the military, this generates from the person in charge. You show attitude, and what I said earlier about attitude, you show attitude, they show attitude. They want to come to work. If that was the case on money, look how low the military gets their pay. And I stayed 22 years. Answer your question.
Can you repeat it again, please? Make sure I get it.
All right, the state of the world right now, the morale of all officers is suffering. How will you recognize low morale and low self-esteem, and how would you address it?
We'll talk to them on a regular basis, know what's going on in their life, know what's going on in their professional life and personal life, not be up on a pedestal to where you're not reachable. I will have an open door policy. I will be accessible. I think a big problem in modern law enforcement is good cops are driven out. A lot of bad cops get promoted. And then when people want to complain or say something, their career's in. I've seen it in Quartzsite repeatedly. A lot of good cops have come through Quartzsite. And I know some really good ones that have come through Quartzsite, but they haven't stuck around because leadership isn't doing the right things. Also, I lost the other part of my thought on that, but our sheriff likes to hire ex-military, correct? A lot of ex-military take the Constitution very serious. And when they come in, into law enforcement and the Constitution is a second thought, there's a problem. In fact, just recently with everything that's going on in the world, we talked about masks earlier, several law enforcement officers have put on YouTube videos talking about how they're not going to enforce this BS because it's unconstitutional. And you know what's happened to those officers? They've lost their careers. They're sending out resumes for new departments that actually will take that oath seriously. So morale, and another reason why low morale is bad leadership, and I intend to fix all that.
Well, let me expand a little bit. We don't have a problem with morale on La Paz County Sheriffs. The guys are very happy. They're very happy because of you, the citizens. I have not had one citizen come out against us. I have not had one citizen call us names. 2 weeks ago, we had a call of a man with a knife upriver chasing the people out of the water. We responded up there, 3 of our units, including myself. We got there, we put the guy in custody. 50 people came out of the water saying, "We love you, we thank you, we don't believe in defunding the police, we want more of you. For God's sakes, get out there and do your job." You know what? They were from California. Yeah, California. Now, Frank was saying we don't give commendations. I've got a brand new officer. He's the newest one that's on the street right now. We got a card today, yeah, it might have been yesterday, and she sent a Starbucks coffee gift card. And she said, I want to thank your deputy, he saved my husband's life. My husband was having heat problems, and your officer recognized it and saved his life. Thank you. You know what my deputy said? Give it to the dispatchers. They're the ones that work the hardest. My guys love what they do. They love working for you, and they love being out there doing their job. And they would give their life for you. And they have demonstrated that with several shootings that we have had. And yes, they were ex-military, and they do one heck of a job. We started doing psychologicals on all of our officers. I was wondering what's going to happen when we have the military come in and they have the PTSD. Miracle of miracles. They're the ones that pass the psychologicals. It's the kids that have never done anything that have trouble with the psychologicals. They haven't been through life. They don't know how nasty life can be. But my veterans, they're out there humping every day doing their job. And they take pride in what they do, and I take pride in what they do. And we make sure that we have a ceremony every time we get a letter in of commendation for somebody that does something good.
So as sheriff, if the governor issued a mandate, would you strictly enforce that mandate if it is not within our constitutional rights?
Negative. 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 Negative.
Perfect. Short and sweet, we like that.
No.
I'll give you two examples. Number one, the governor wanted to put through red flag laws. That was if somebody calls up and says, my dad's nuts, he needs to have his gun taken away, we were expected to go out and take it away. There's 15 sheriffs in the state of Arizona. Every sheriff wrote a letter to the governor and said, no way in heck are we going to take guns away from people. There's a strict way that the law runs, and that is not it. We believe in the Second Amendment. The other thing is, when we had COVID, all of a sudden the health department says, we're going to start citing people, we're going to put people in jail. And you probably saw most of the sheriffs said, no, we're not. This is a health issue. This isn't a criminal action. I can't force people to take shots. How am I going to force them to wear masks or stay at home when it's their constitutional right to go out and live? So no.
So as sheriff, if the BLM protesters were to show up here and our president has declared them a terrorist organization, would you enforce arresting them simply based on the fact that they're involved in a terrorist organization?
If they were committing the act, if they were committing the act.
If they were protesting like
Well,
they are
with-
protesting all over
With
the
the amount of
country.
people that the Paz Sheriff's Department has, we won't make a whole lot of arrests because we'll be chasing them, trying to catch them. But I would incur DPS, Quartzsite, BLM, Riverside County, United States Army.
And if the decision was left up to you, would you declare BLM and Antifa a terrorist organization?
If I had that authority. If I had that authority, I don't want to step.
If you had it.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to say real quick. When I was a drill sergeant, pushing basic trainees, still in civilian clothes, we get them right off the bus. And I'd say, in the next 8 weeks, 9 weeks, I'm going to be your daddy, your mom, your uncle, your brother, your cousin. I'm going to be everything but your girlfriend. Well, guess what? Why did Joe Blow take off and go AWOL? Well, he was having problems with his girlfriend. Why did Joe Blow try to commit suicide? Because he was having trouble with his girlfriend. The lesson learned, you take care of every situation.
this. If the wizard in Washington says we have to round up these people, would I? The constitutional answer is if they're committing a crime. Okay? As your sheriff, I don't work for the president. As your sheriff, I don't work for the governor. I don't even work for the board of supervisors. I work for the people. I'm a duly elected representative of the people. If it's what the people want, that's what we'll do. What was the second part again?
If it was left up to you, if you could make that decision, would you declare them a terrorist organization?
Again, only if they're committing a crime. And it should be noted that we actually have Antifa here in Quartzsite, and Dennis Vosper has had to deal with that. He's got court appearances. And I don't think we should just be rounding people up because of their affiliations. Okay, that's been tried before. It doesn't work. They actually have to be committing a crime. There actually has to be an aggression against somebody. And it's not words alone. They have to actually, commit a crime. So that's how I would handle it.
No, I would not arrest them based upon what organization they belong to. If they committed a crime, I have many tools in my toolbox to handle it, anywhere from warnings to citations to jail to whatever. But my job is to protect you, the citizens of La Paz County. Mr. Roth was right, I don't work for anybody but you. Now, I'll tell you a little story. Our county manager was speeding, and he got stopped by one of my deputies. And all of a sudden, he tells the deputy, "I'm your boss." And my deputy says, "No, you're not, sir. I work for the people of La Paz County and Sheriff Risen." And he wrote him a ticket.
So Parker has multiple law enforcement agencies: Parker Police Department, La Paz County Sheriff, CRIT, and DPS, all in one town area. Quartzsite has its own police department, but it doesn't patrol La Paz Valley, Rainbow Acres, and other areas, creating longer than reasonable response times for those particular areas by Sheriff's Department. Plus, the cost of having a city-specific police department is expensive. What would you say to the idea of eliminating both the Parker and Quartzsite police departments and expanding the La Paz County Sheriff's Department? And, sorry, go ahead and answer that part. Well, I'll read the rest of his question. Establishing new Quartzsite, so expanding the La Paz County Sheriff's Department, establishing a new Quartzsite substation that would serve Quartzsite, La Paz Valley, Rainbow Acres, and maybe more, thus reducing both response times and, in theory, the cost of policing.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was that way back in 1990. When did Quartzsite become incorporated? 83. Incorporated. 83, the county was formed.
89.
Well, I brought the paperwork from Quartzsite, voters register, where it was, to the jail, or to the sheriff's office. I don't remember when that was, when they decided to have their own police department. Hell, I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, back then. We did show Quartzsite. Quartzsite was District 2, split in half with District 3, which entails Salone and then Bass. In fact, the cutoff is Milepost 34 on the interstate. Well, if you look at that, that's almost past Brendan on the interstate. I would say no. I would say no. Now, I've got to where Quartzsite couldn't afford to support their own law enforcement by all means. We still dispatch for you. You don't have your own dispatch. We dispatch for you, correct? We still dispatch for Quartzsite?
Yes. The only ones we don't dispatch for is Crick.
And I was there when that started. So, I would say no. I would say let Parker has her own. It's been brought up for Crick. Get rid of Parker. Bring you Crick. To me, that's definitely no. But I think Quartzsite's been doing a good job, so you need to keep your chief of police here and vote for me.
This question's been asked quite a bit over the years. It's not up to me to decide what I would do. It's up to what the people want. Okay, I personally think the Quartzsite Police Department is expensive, and there's been a load of problems over the years. It's cost, they drive away business with some of their antics during the season towards the snowbirds. But it should also be noted that the Sheriff's Department is the only constitutionally recognized law enforcement. These modern police departments are a new thing. And I think we're in trouble because of a lot of things that are going on in these police departments. So if the people want it, and if we can make the case that you're actually going to have more sheriff's deputies focused in the community, I'd be for it. It would save money. I think economically, it'd be good for the taxpayers. But that's if the people want it. I can't just wave a magic wand and say, we're going to do this. So I would be open to the idea.
My suggestion to Parker and the Quartzsite would be not go with the Sheriff's Department. The reason is you have your police department that follows what your guidelines are. They know what you need and they know what you want. Community-based policing is based upon what the people perceive as the problems of the community. Who better than your local police can perceive the problems of your community? Now, I have been asked about taking over Quartzsite. I said the same thing. I'm not in favor of it. I have been asked about taking over Parker. Again, I'm not in favor of that. If you give up your police department, you'll never, ever get it back. You're talking about a fortune to buy everything back, to get units, and to hire people, and the whole thing. Don't give up what you have when you have an organization that represents you, the people of the community. Now, I work very closely with all the agencies, with the exception of one. That's CRIT. I have problems with CRIT. I can explain to you later if you want to know what it is. We still back them up. We back up Quartzsite. Quartzsite backs us up. The same with Parker. It's not unheard of when there's a major incident in Quartzsite and I'm rolling my units down here to assist Quartzsite. I'll get on the radio and call Parker and tell him you got the north end of the county. No problem, we got the north end of the county. We've had it the other way. When we've had a murder upriver, I'll tell Quartzsite, you got the south end of the county. Okay. We work together, and it makes sense to work together. But as far as taking over the police departments, as Mr. Roth said, it's up to the people. But I would be against it. I think you'd lose a whole lot because you wouldn't get the police service that you have now. How many deputies do you think I would put into Quartzsite? And you would have to pay for every deputy that's in Quartzsite. And how often do you think that deputy would be called out of Quartzsite to go somewhere else within the county? Remember, I have a lot more things that I am responsible for than a local police department. I have search and rescue, I have dive team, I have the Aero Bureau, I have the canine team. I have all kinds of things where we go out on special assignments. So my answer is no.
Any questions from the audience?
My question would be, what are your feelings on whether we're doing enough for human trafficking? Have you thought of what you're going to be doing for human trafficking that's happening here in La Paz County?
Do we know that this is going on? Human trafficking? Do we know that this is going on?
Human trafficking, drug trafficking, or what kind of
Human trafficking.
Was it at times, yes, we have, especially on Interstate 10.
Again, in human trafficking, we like the drugs. We had 500-pound loads of drugs going through here way back when, and we'd get a whole DEA and they said, nah, it's on its way to San Diego, we'll get it. So we had no man force to stop it, and DPS wasn't doing anything. But as far as human trafficking, I think any officer that realized what the situation was, and rather than put himself at risk, would advise the normal channels to set up a stop someplace and make contact with the people going on. Did that answer your question?
Human trafficking is a problem, especially out here where it's really remote. Human trafficking is a problem on reservations. It's a big problem on reservations. In fact, there's a movement called MMIW, Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. And I actually have had talks about this with Raymond Meza. He's an activist up in Parker. And he had some good ideas and some good suggestions. And Raymond and I will get together and bring this discussion out. It's a problem. I don't know how many tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people go missing every year. They just seem to be forgotten about. And I will work with the community, the people in the community, and find out what's really going on out there. I don't know. I live, nice and safe in Quartzsite, close to this freeway that felons and murderers and rapists go up and down every minute. But yeah, it happens. It's a problem. We need to spend some time looking at it and talking about it. And like I said, I've already reached out to Raymond Meza, who's been bringing attention to this, and we're going to sit down and have more discussions.
Yes, we've had human trafficking in La Paz County, especially the Interstate 10 corridor, especially during the Super Bowl. It's a major problem. All of a sudden, they start bringing women in for the Super Bowl in Phoenix. We also had some trouble at the casino. I do have an expert on staff, Draper. He teaches classes on human trafficking. The county attorney has brought in some special investigators who has also put on a class on human trafficking. And I have worked with Border Patrol on human trafficking. So it's pretty much an invisible crime. You really don't see about it. You don't hear about it. And when we stop the women or the men with the women, nobody cops out to what's happening. So it's a very difficult crime to prove because nobody will say anything. And you kind of need a victim to have a crime.
I guess my question is, Quartzsite Police Department, a friend of mine just a few days ago had a home invasion, called 911, and still no one has shown up to this day. This is almost a week ago. How would the Sheriff's Department work and integrate with the local police department to help our response time? I know we're down on deputies, from what I've heard, and how can the Sheriff's Department help us here in Quartzsite?
Well, you're saying about a resident in the Quartzsite area?
Yeah.
At a home invasion?
Yes, in the center of the town.
With that scenario, by all means, if the Sheriff's Department was called for assistance, if they had to even call officers out, if I'm the sheriff, when I'm the sheriff, everybody would go that you would need. All you have to do is ask. So we need, because we have suspects available in custody or we're chasing them or whatever. Case in point, I had an officer come up to me and he said, hey, would you go to the court and arrest this lady for child neglect, abuse, and all this other kind of stuff? They lived over here in one of these parks. He said, sure. So I go over there, and I said, hello, you're going with me. So I cuffed her up, walked her, and come to find out she'd been stabbed. So I take her to the jail, and I said, check this lady out. So they did this and take her to the hospital. So I take her to the hospital. While I'm at the hospital, back up 2 steps, at court, the judge, the Superior Court judge says, ma'am, do you know where your children are at? No, sir. Boyfriend, do you know where our children are at? No, sir. So he lied too. So I'm at the hospital with this lady, and my supervisor comes up. What do you got? And I told her. And she said she accidentally stabbed herself in the car. I don't know how deep it was, didn't know. All of a sudden, dispatch calls me and says, the boyfriend has got the kids in one of the trailer parks down here. Would you respond? I'm on the way. Well, there was me, the District 1 officer, Quartzsite, DPS, everybody. So, when something like that happens, we all respond. The guy did have the children, but the reason we went was because he said, I got a gun and I'll kill these kids and everybody else. So, even the task force got involved in La Paz County. That answers your question.
So there was a home invasion here at Quartzsite and nobody responded.
That's what I was told, yeah.
That's a problem. And get back to the previous question. If you get rid of your local police department, that does not mean you have less police officers out there. To be a town, you have to provide law enforcement. So they would have to pay the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office would put in more deputies with the money they're getting from the communities. I just want to make that clear. My platform talks about guns a lot. And the reason why is the people are the true first responders. If you're sitting there waiting at the end of a 911 call, you're in trouble. When I talk about this, we're going to have gun classes. I'd like to sponsor a shooting team for high school students. I found out that there is actually a rifle class being offered in future 4-H groups. I want to make it available to where anybody can come to the sheriff's office and have their guns looked at. A lot of people don't even know how to clean their guns. A lot of people own guns and never shot them. I want to change all that. I'd like to see La Paz County more armed, because guns do truly save lives. And I was a potential victim of a home invasion. I was able to see what was going on. People walking by that I never saw in my neighborhood, a car down the street from me with his tag up against the wall to where I couldn't see. Then all of a sudden a stranger come by in the middle of the summer pushing a dirt bike in full gear. I couldn't tell if he had tattoos or anything. And he came on my property, said he needed air in his tire. And I said, you need to go to Pilot right now. Get out of here. But I was able to recognize it. I never had to pull my gun. I never had to flash it. But I knew something was going on, and I stopped it. The guy immediately went over to an area that was known as the Compound. It was a meth house across from the yacht club. It's all been cleaned up now. But I filed a report and submitted it to the police department. And if I hadn't been paying attention, I wonder what could have happened. And I want to make the community, the citizens, more aware of what's really going on in the community. A lot of this dangerous stuff is not brought up. People want to keep it down. I want to talk about it. I want people to know we've had some real dangerous, serious homicides. People coming in from Phoenix, older couples targeted, murdered. And I think with more training from your sheriff's department, people will be more prepared to respond. Because if you're waiting at the end of that phone call for help to come, it could be an hour, it could be never. We had this brought up out in Bowles at the Meet the Candidates. People had called 911 and a cop never showed up, ever. That's a problem. People are going to die, and with me as your sheriff, more people are going to be trained. I'll give you an example of more guns stopping crime. Kennesaw, Georgia, I met the lady who started this movement where everybody in the county, town, the community, had to be armed. They passed an ordinance. Everybody had to be armed. You know what happened to crime in that town? It plummeted. It went practically to zero. Just by the fact that everyone had to be armed. I would love to see the Board of Supervisors do something like that here. Everyone has to be armed, voluntarily, of course. But with more guns, there'll be less crime. With more training, people will be able to assist law enforcement. That's another part of my platform. One of the things I'm going to do is deputize volunteers. We need more citizen involvement. And once we have that, and it's going to take a lot of pressure off the officers, they may be on an accident on the freeway. With people more involved, the problems will be stopped at the point of aggression.
As sheriff of La Paz County, I have no oversight of Quartzsite. Quartzsite is unto itself. I checked with the Attorney General because I came from California, and I know that the sheriff of Los Angeles County took over Signal Hill, and the sheriff of Los Angeles County took over Long Beach and took over portions of Pomona. Can't happen here. The law doesn't say that I can do it. I'm surprised nobody responded on the call. Now you have to keep in mind that I get a lot of people that say, I reported this and nobody came. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I put it on Facebook. We don't check Facebook to see if there's a crime. Don't use your computer unless you're sending the message directly to the sheriff's department. Now, I don't know the circumstances. It could very well have happened. But, again, we don't have oversight over the Quartzsite Police Department. I had some complaints come in about personnel of Quartzsite. I sent it down to the Quartzsite mayor and to the chief of police. And hopefully between those two that are required to do something about it, they did something about it.
I guess that was the real answer to my question, because I didn't know how the sheriff's department was allowed to interact with our current police officers.
Even though I am the only elected law enforcement official for La Paz County, and sheriffs are the only elected law enforcement for the United States, it doesn't give us ultimate authority over everybody. As a courtesy, if I send people down here into Quartzsite for something, I let the chief know that we're on the way down. If I have to roll units down Mojave Road, which runs between Parker and Ehrenberg, I have to notify CRIT that we're rolling code 3 through their jurisdiction because they get upset if we're rolling at 80, 90 miles an hour with lights and sirens because we have a shooting or something in Ehrenberg. So there is a courtesy that I have to do, but I actually have no power over them either.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the community?
One is going up 95 to a park. You always have this guy that's going to ride you rear end. That nobody claims jurisdiction over that area. Why don't the police have some, never mind who's got jurisdiction, all I want is that tailgater off my rear end. And I would like to put a 4 gauge to the rear, the back of all. But they say you can't do that.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. Having a tailgater on you, okay? First off, it's the jurisdiction of the sheriff's department, okay? It doesn't really have to be anywhere. If you can get the license plate number of that vehicle and the
That's hard to get the license plate when the guy's up your rear end, you can't even see his lights.
well, let him pass you.
Huh?
Let him pass
That's
you.
right. I've had one time, I even pulled down in the breakdown lane. He pulled down in the breakdown lane.
Well, there's a
That's why I
difference.
say all cars should have 12 gauges.
Well, all I can tell you is, if you have an issue, with a vehicle, okay, pull off. If they pull off, just keep going, go slow. He'll eventually get tired of following you and go around you. Get his license plate if you can. I don't know, do you have a cell phone? Do you have a cell phone?
I do not have a cell phone when I'm driving.
How about the wife? But, just trying to simplify everything, the nearest phone that you can get to, you call dispatch, or even 911 if you feel that you're in danger, and say, this vehicle, this license
We still
plate.
don't get no response. We got run off the road once, and
Well, like I said, La Paz County's only got one deputy per district.
that's what I say. I'm getting tired of being told we can't defend ourselves against these people. So, why do we even need police at all? Why don't we go back to days of the West where we do defend ourselves? Somebody's trying to kill my property, I can't defend my property, that's against Article 4 of the Constitution.
Yes, you can defend your property.
Hmm?
Yes, you can defend your property.
And I told you can't do that, that's not nice. By the courts I paid in.
Keep your chief of police intact. Vote for me.
I chased 2 people out this year, third person might get his hand chopped off.
Does anybody want to?
Yeah, I would just offer a suggestion, and that is get their picture of their license plate. If you don't carry a cell phone, the only other option you have is to buy some kind of a rolling dash cam.
I
And
know
they're
we have a cop patrolling, and when they do, I passed one time 2 stadies with a trucker on my rear end, the 2 stadies never left the meter.
And I have heard of people going up to Parker and the semis were on their tail, and they did call 911, and they did. You do stop them. So I would suggest technology. Get a camera in your vehicle and catch them. I mean, you can't without proof. There's really nothing they can do.
What's going to happen is when we get them stopped, we're going to ask if you'll sign a complaint against them because you're the only witness to what took place. Absent you signing the complaint, there's not a darn thing we can do about it. Now, as far as officers, you've got all kinds of officers on Highway 95. They just don't happen to be there when you're there. How many people saw La Paz County Sheriff's in Quartzsite today? Anybody see La Paz Sheriff's in Quartzsite today?
I'll go back to the paper.
We had 3 deputies doing a search and rescue, and after that finished, 2 more doing a search and rescue out in the desert. It's not that we're not here, it's just you don't see us. We are out here working. We did save the life of the people where we sent the 3 out to get them. The other 2, or the other person we were looking for that we sent 2 units for, it looks like it was a false report to us that they were playing games with us. It's hot out there. And people aren't very smart when they go out on their ATVs and motorcycles without water. We carry cases and cases of water. And I guess the person today, my wife said something about, they were talking about having to do CPR on them. During the summer, we lose people in the desert. During the winter, we have a better time frame of being able to help them. So we are out there, we are doing stuff. And I believe this was within the limits of Quartzsite, but they didn't have any cars that could go off-road. And I had the trucks that would go off-road.
Okay, last, is everybody good?
As far as asset forfeiture, I'd like to, if you could, there are probably some folks who don't know what asset forfeiture is. If you could define asset forfeiture and explain your perspective. Will you do asset forfeiture, or are you opposed to asset forfeiture?
Yes, there is asset forfeiture. Yes, we do use asset forfeiture. However, a lot of people give a wrong description of it in saying that we take money out of your pocket. And people are going, my God, I'm carrying $100 and they're going to take it. No, we don't take $100. We have to have a nexus to drugs. I haven't seen any seizures for under $200,000, $300,000. How many of you carry pocket change of $200,000 or $300,000? Not very many. How do you hurt a drug dealer? Not taking his drugs because he just produces them more. The only one that hurts is his money. There's a system set up. It goes to the county attorney. He looks at it and decides if there's probable cause for what was taken. Again, we have to have the nexus of drugs, something to show that drugs were involved with the money. Now, once in a while, we'll get somebody when we stop them and they got a suitcase of money and they'll go, where'd that come from? I have no idea. And they sign a waiver that says, I don't know who the money belongs to, I don't know where it came from, get it out of my car. That's one form of asset forfeiture. If the county attorney feels that there's probable cause, then they can take it to court and they can ask the court to make a decision on whether they get the money back or not. Again, we have to prove a nexus of drugs. We just can't say, there's $50,000, it's ours. No, there's more to it. We have to actually prove that it was ill-gotten gains.
I am absolutely 100% opposed to civil asset forfeiture. It is legal. It is unconstitutional. Even criminals still have due process. That's just our system. Okay, so just grabbing it because there's a law that says you can take the money, in my opinion, is reprehensible, even if it is a lot of money. So we have due process for a reason, and it's to protect us from overzealous bureaucrats who pass laws that say they can do things that are outside, the Constitution. So, how would I handle civil asset forfeiture? I wouldn't deal with it at all. It's not free money, it's legal. And by the way, the Supreme Court's looking at this and have looked at it and they're rolling it back. But what people don't understand how civil asset forfeiture started. It was started as a way to go after drug dealers. Okay, Joe Biden was the one, I believe, who gave it to us originally. And now it's morphed into anybody with more money than law enforcement thinks you should have. And I'll give you an example. There were two Mexican nationals going up 95 some years ago. They were going to Salt Lake City to a custody hearing, and they each had $10,000 cash, legal. You can leave the United States or come to the United States with $10,000. Above that, you're supposed to declare. They were legally carrying the amount of money they could legally carry. So the officer who made the stop checked the documents, they had paperwork, and he was going to let them go. His superiors said, take the money. He didn't want to. And those two, I don't know what ultimately happened to them, but I think that $20,000 ended up in that evidence room fire that Quartzsite had because there was actually $20,000 missing. So, when you go outside the borders of the Constitution, you invite all kinds of bad elements. And that can come from government agents as well. So I'm against it, and I believe civil asset forfeiture will be rolled back. And I don't think we should be out there looking at it as a means to fund or finance things. I know current Sheriff Reisen has talked about how we got all new radios through civil asset forfeiture. I don't think we should.
Grants.
Huh?
Those were grants through the RAP, which is
At the town hall meeting, when you spoke, you said, see this radio on the side? I got all this for no cost. I got the video. We'll go to the video then. So even if the fact is, it's just unconstitutional and it's going away, and law enforcement has this attitude that, well, if it's legit, you got to go to court, you got to prove it's yours, and if it's yours, you get it back. Well, what if they take $10,000 from you, and you've got to prove it? How much is a lawyer nowadays? $250 an hour? You think it's going to take a few hours to defend you? So people are saying, take my money, and they flip off La Paz County on their way out, and they don't come back. I've seen, well, I won't go down that road, but I'm against it, and we shouldn't be doing it. It's immoral.
to what they were both saying. In my 26 years on the road, I never had the opportunity to bust anybody that had a lot of money. But I did, and I was the only cop that made, my first bust was on exit 11, $1.4 million in cocaine. And I was that far from letting her go because I had no backup. But I had 15 guys back over here playing games with each other, cops. We were taking turns, and it was my turn. Well, one cop makes a stop because she came off of exit 11, still giving a right-hand turn, signal, passed the white bar, and made a left turn. And I'm hiding over here in the dark, so I pulled her over. Nobody come over to help me. Hello? I said, who's this guy? My cousin. What's your cousin's name? What's your name, cousin? She didn't know. He was a runner. So I was just about ready to let her go. Perkins, anybody remember Officer Perkins that was here? He comes up. He said, did you search the car? Where in the hell are you been? He opened the trunk. Can't get the glove box open. Did you pop open the glove box? Oh, yeah, okay. So as she's trying to open the glove box, Perkins comes out, weapon drawn. I go like this because I had the other guy over here. And slams her to the ground, foot on her. And this is when we find the cocaine. We took the car to the shop. They field stripped that. If you know what field strip means, they tore that thing all the way down to the frame. And that's where they found the drugs. The other bust that I made was in Ehrenberg. Anyway, just to let you know, in 26 years, hell, I don't think anybody had over 10 bucks. Right?
Hang on, I lost my Facebook feed. You're going live though, right?
I'm just recording.
I can't go live from. Well, darn. Well, my phone is tripping. Of course, technology. So, just take a few minutes just to expand on why we should vote for you as sheriff.
The reason I think that you all should vote for me as your sheriff coming up is, number one, I'm not anti-citation or anti-ticket. If you recall when I first spoke, communications and attitude, I will always display a friendly attitude, and depending on the person's response, depends on what we do with this citation if it warrants that. But La Paz County, per se, Parker, the river, Quartzsite is the snowbird escape areas. They get out of the winter heat, winter cold, to come on down here. If the officers are citation heavy, how long do you think that they're going to stay around? They'll move down to Yuma. They'll move up to Havasu. And we lose their revenue that they bring in because cops don't mess with them. I'm not saying don't stop them, but I'm a believer in this. Did your daddy and mom ever give you this? Or grandma, did she ever give you that? And pay attention to what's going on. Have a nice day. Believe it or not, it works. So not everybody needs to have a citation. So I would instill that into the sheriff, the deputies. Not everybody needs to get a citation. Not everybody needs to go to jail. I would push the officers to patrol the residential areas, the business areas, because that's what we're hired for. We're not hired to run the interstate, the highways. If you're going from point A to point B and you have a violator, by all means, you need to stop. But if we're going to give all these citations, then we sure don't need DPS because they're not going to patrol through the residential areas. Education, I want to instill the education, renewed education to the officers that are on duty. We'll have little tests, they're not pass or fail, and these tests will come from the supervisors, the online supervisors, the lieutenants, anything that comes into a matter of fact of what if. Give me 10 different answers for what if a situation might happen. Self-awareness. Keep your chief of police intact. Keep him here. Vote for Frank DeGree.
So I've prepared a 4-minute presentation. Is that all right? I'm Mike Roth, and I'm your next sheriff. When voting for a sheriff, it's important you consider the Constitution and the people who will be defending your rights. If the person you are considering is a little lazy on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you should avoid them at all costs. And the reason why is because they swore an oath to the Constitution. And if they can't honor their oath completely, it's only a matter of time before you are affected. Some people say I'm not qualified for this position because I'm not a cop and I have no formal law enforcement training. I'm here to say I'm exactly who is needed in these difficult and soon to be more difficult times. Modern law enforcement is getting some terrible training. Some of my opponents firmly believe in the federalization of law enforcement or the nationalization of local law enforcement. This is a terrible idea, and history proves this. Getting an attaboy from federal law enforcement is a guaranteed loss of your liberty and your freedoms. I've stood up for people who've had no voice. I've helped people when there was nothing in it for me. I've even helped people when it would hurt me. Why would anyone do that? I don't know why anyone else would, but for me, living in a small community like this, in a small, not a densely populated county, if they're willing to violate other people's rights, yours are next. Okay? That's just the way it works. And if we let law enforcement get away with doing the wrong things today, tomorrow it will be even worse for all of us. I'm not a perfect man. I've made plenty of mistakes. Some say I'm a little rough around the edges, and I agree with them. But ask yourself, would you rather support someone who's willing to lie to your face and support the person who will tell you the truth, no matter how painful it is for all involved? When you talk to me, you get exactly what I say I'm going to do. With others, you don't really know. I will never lie to you intentionally. I might get it wrong, but I'll own up to it and not try and cover it up. Being a leader requires one to be honest in your dealings, and if you have to second guess or justify bad behavior, you're making a bad decision. My history fighting bad cops is crystal clear. I've been arrested, jailed, tried, and cleared of all charges. I've had to teach law enforcement how to do their job, and it's cost me personally. But I did not waver. I kept my spine straight, and I followed through no matter what. And as your sheriff, I assure you, you'll be glad you voted for me. I will do the same thing on the inside as I have done on the outside of the system. If you want the Good Old Boy Club to continue with business as usual, there's others to pick from. I will not bend, I will not break, I will stand strong when it comes time to do the right thing, and that's really what I'm all about. I will give you honest and accountable law enforcement. If you'd like to know more about my platform, go to rothforsheriff.com. rothforsheriff.com. There you will see my presentation at the Baus Meet the Candidate events. I had 15 minutes to lay out a platform, and it's all right there. I explain how I will be the most transparent sheriff in La Paz County history, and I also have a question and answer session where the people of the community ask me more questions. I will be an open door sheriff. You won't have to wait 4 more years to see your sheriff again. I will be very much involved in the community. So thank you, and I'll stay here and answer any questions anybody has. And I thank you for your time. And you're going to love living under the first true constitutional sheriff in La Paz County history. God bless you, and God bless America.
I'm Bill Reisen. I've been your sheriff for the last 3.5 years, and I've done a good job. My deputies have done an excellent job. I run the biggest department within the county of La Paz. I have over 100 employees. I work well with my employees work well with me. I have the jail. My jail holds 305 inmates. I have no problems in the jail with how people are treated. We treat them with dignity and honesty. I ask for your vote for another 4 years so I can finish what I was doing. I think I pointed out to you by all the things that I have been involved in of how much I care for La Paz County and what I have done for La Paz County. Thank you.
Well, great. Thanks you all for coming.